So, in this video, I'm going to show you how to prepare an avatar, a Fortnite VRChat avatar, in Blender for Unity. So, first off, you're going to need Fortnite porting, or F-model. Fortnite porting's my preferred one. You can find any skin. I'm going to use Arcana, for example, and then she's going to be ported into Blender, and I'm going to show you everything to do to prepare it for Unity. So, I've got the character in Blender. First thing I'm going to do is take note of a couple of things. How many materials it has, how many UVs it has, what kind of shape keys, etc. First thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to go to Vertex Paint, and we're going to want to completely just get rid of it. We don't want it. Once we've done that, we're going to essentially start preparing the materials. Now, I could technically merge down the eye material for the head material, and I might, I think I will. So, for now I'm going to have them separate, because I'm going to bake the textures for the eye. But, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take note of that. We're going to get this down to 3 materials. So, first thing we're going to want to do is make visemes. So, depending on the type of character you have, either it being a normal Fortnite character from before Chapter 4, or after, being metahuman, they're going to have different types of shape keys. But they have a pretty basic consistency. Like, they both have a blink shape key, and that's what we're going to use to do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to make the visemes based on just combining different shape keys that Fortnite already uses. So I'm going to just hit this arrow and hit new shape from mix. I'm going to set that back to 0, and then we've got a new key. I'm going to rename this to blink. Now that I've done that, I'm going to actually do another thing. There's a look up and look down. So we're gonna let me add a smooth corrective real quick. That didn't help at all. Dang. Alright. So, that sucks. Of course, we can always tweak the shape keys a little if we want. Like, I don't like that clipping, so I'm gonna put it at probably 0.8 for both of them. And then I'm gonna add new shape from mix. The reason I'm doing this for the I look down and I look up as well is because Unity actually allows you to do that. So, look up, and then new shape from mix. And then turn these to 0 as well. We've got 2 new keys, looking down, which I'm going to call look down, and then one for looking up, which I'm going to call look up. So, we've got our looking shape keys. I called that look down again. Dang. Oh no. So, we've got our 3 shape keys for the eyes. The blink, look down, and look up. Now, we can do one of 2 things. We can make the 3 basic shape keys, and then just call it that, and then just use cats to fill in the rest. Or we can individually make every viseme. Either one is fine. So, I'm going to show you the first way, the main 3, and then just filling the rest. There is A, O, and Ch. Those are the main visemes you want. So, Fortnite actually has some shape keys for like the older heads that actually already use it. But for the new ones, it's a bit different. So, I'm going to show you how I would probably do this. So for like you want it to kind of make the shape of like you're opening your mouth, just like saying on or something. So I'd say this is pretty good, but I may want to narrow the mouth a little. And maybe I want to move the lips a little. Maybe I'll raise them slightly. So I'm going to do that for the top ones. Maybe a little less than that. But for the lower ones, I'm actually going to do a little more. There it is. I might just bring the jaw forward a little. It's all about what you think looks right, what you think looks good. So, like, if these values I'm putting are not the ones you have to put, these can be just about anything. So, I think this looks good for ah, so I'm just gonna make this ah. So, what I can do is I can do new shape from mix, and then I can just go back to all the shape keys I messed with and set them back to 0. So, like, here are some that are enabled, here's some more, here's some more. And that's that. So now I've got a ah. So I'm going to call this ah. Now, O is a bit different. Rather than being like on or something like that, it would be like open or O. So O would be a little, probably less open of the jaw, more narrow of the lips. So I'm going to go back to jaw open. I'm going to start with like maybe 0.6. And I can always adjust this. I'm going to go to the purse lips because I actually thought those looked pretty good for what I'm going to be doing. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I'm going to go back to this. I'm going to move the mouth up slightly. Maybe actually down. Yeah, I think down might actually be better. Yes. That works perfectly for what I'm going for. And then, of course, you can always tweak anything you think needs tweaking. Actually, I think it's pretty good how it is with the purse. So I'm going to do a new shape from mix. And then I'm going to go back to everything. And just make sure everything is disabled again. Alright, we now have a new shape I accidentally made, apparently. And then we've got O. And then the last one will be Ch. Fairly simple one to make. I realized I shouldn't have made it right off the bat. I should go make it. Alright, so I'm going to go back to the lip. Maybe the depress. And maybe a bit of a lip bite. 0.5. See, I'm just messing around with shape keys, looking to see what I think looks nice. I'm gonna go to mouth up again, because I think the mouth is a little low. That is the wrong shape key. Ooh. I think that works for ch. What I will actually probably do is I'll go to the jaw and maybe set these to 0.1. Then do shape remix. So now I have ch. So I currently have the Cat's Blender plugin installed. And this essentially is a really great way of streamlining the process of making a VRChat avatar in Blender. So I can technically do bone posing for the armature and pose the face there, but I prefer to use the shape keys, though there is no wrong answer. So if you wanted to pose the mouth, you can. If you want to pose the eyes in any way, you can. There's no real wrong way of doing it. So now that I've done that, I'm going to go to Visemes, and I'm going to go to O, O, and Ch, because that's the way you have to fill these in. And then I'm going to create Visemes. So now it has all of these Visemes now. It auto-filled in some of the Visemes. But if you want to individually make every Viseme, you can. That's what I usually do. But I'm trying to keep this relatively short. So, now that we've made Visemes, and the blink and eye look up and down, that is most of the stuff we gotta do. I would usually export at this point, because we've got Visemes and we got everything else. But one thing I actually want to check for, because I know sometimes characters can give issues, so I'm going to go into pose mode, and I'm going to look at what portions of the character use physics. So for example, the skirt can move, and I want to make sure that none of the physic bones are oriented in a way where it could be problems in the future. So the reason I say that is because let's say this bone is sideways to begin with at the bottom. Well, what VRChat does when it comes to physic bones is it will always try to make the bone hang naturally. Luckily for us, in this instance, the skirt seems fine, and none of those would fall in a way where it would break. So, I'm just going to other parts of the arm to see what everything else does. These just look like deformed bones for the arms, deformed bones for the shoulder. This looks like special bones for this, which I assume are constrained to the shoulder with how they rotate and everything, which isn't a big deal. I'm gonna go check out the hair. Hair seems to be fine. Everything seems to be oriented in a way that works for me. I'm going to take a look down here. So here's the first bone where I'm like, this could cause an issue. Because let's say if I have the gravity at 1 in Unity, it will hang like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to edit mode, and I can just take the end of it. I can just rotate this 180 degrees. And I can, of course, rotate this in ways to where it straightens back out to however I need it to be. I'd say maybe a little more up. I think that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to go check on more bones. See this one works the way I want it to. This one is another concern. And this looks like a thigh twist. Calf twist, my bad. So yeah, I'm going to just do this for a couple of more bones. And because I don't want them to be oriented in a way that could cause issues. I think that works pretty well. Now I'm going to go to the other leg, and it's even worse. And I think that's all I need to do for that. And I believe that is all the bones that I have to worry about for having physics. Well, now that I've done that, I said I was going to bake some textures. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate the character by material. And I'm going to go to the eyes. And I'm just going to hide the other meshes for right now. So for the eyes here, I want them to look a little different. I think this should be a little more flat with the normal. And I think that's about everything I actually want it to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an image texture. And I'm going to bake the normals for the eye. I'm going to set this to 2048 by 1024, and I'm going to call this eye normal bake. This is a good way of knowing how to bake just about any texture. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to set the render engine to cycles, and then I'm going to set it to GPU. Then I'm going to come all the way down to bake. Now I'm going to set it to normal, and make sure I have my mesh selected, the texture I want to bake to. I'm going to actually set this to non-color, because that's what normals are usually set to. So this is a non-color texture. I'm now going to just bake. Usually it shouldn't take too long, depending on your graphics card. And just like that, mine's already done. And as you can see here, I've got my normal texture. So I'm going to save it to probably a new folder. So I'm going to make a new folder called arc, just so I know where all of this stuff's going to be saved to. And I'm going to make a folder called baked textures. Now I've done that, I can actually save this blend file with external data packed. You really want that. And I'm going to save this to this. I'm going to make this arc avatar. It's really handy to keep the project file in case you ever want to go back and update a character or add something through Blender, because doing it from scratch sucks. Well, now that I've done that, I can actually go ahead and merge the eye material. No, wait, I need to add that mission as well. Go back. So, as you can see here, there are some white dots that are done through this shader that aren't naturally done through the textures. What I can then do is I can go to emission. I think I might do this a bit differently. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just make this black. I'm going to set the roughness as very high. The reason I'm doing this is so this can be the diffuse, I think. You know what, we'll just set it as combined. So combined is cringe, but I'm going to turn off direct and indirect. So it's going to essentially combine everything into one texture. So I'm going to make a new image texture because we don't want to bake to that one. I'm going to make this 2048 by 1024, and I'm going to call this eye emission. Maybe I should bake from diffuse, or maybe I can't bake from above surface. Let's try baking the combined first. So, let me see if adding a camera fixes that. Yes, you need a camera. So, I added a camera to the scene. I'm going to set this camera to my perspective. I'm going to just move it to 0, 0, move it down, move it back. And I'm just going to position it right where it looks right at the eyes with the perspective that I'm wanting it to have. I could probably even give it orthographic view. So now that I've done that, I'm going to go back to the eyes and then bake. I have them selected. I believe I have them selected. Now let me just make sure this baked properly. I'm going to just drag this into the surface. And to do that. So we can see here that the eye got a little larger, but I'm honestly fine with it. I think it still works with the way I need it to. So we're going to call that eye emission and save the image. Now that I've done that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some photo editing for the textures to add the eye normal to the head textures. So I'm going to re-merge everything, merge the hair to the body, merge the eyes to the head, and then for the eyes and head, I'm going to get rid of the eye material. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. I'm just trying to, at every step of the way, optimize things, because that's a very important thing to do. And now, the character is 3 materials rather than 4. That saves on a whole material slot, and saves on textures. So, I'm going to save, and now, I'm going to delete this camera, and I'm going to export the character. So, I'm exporting it as an FBX. 2 things. I'm going to only export the visible objects, because I only want them to export. And then for armature down here, I do not like leaf bones. It adds a bunch of extra bones at the end of bones, and I just think it's stupid. So I'm just going to have that off. Then I'm going to export FBX. And that's that.